Welcome into Wild and Wacky Wednesday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. We are coming to you from the Lee Company studios of our respective homes. We'll be here with you for the next couple of hours talking about sports of local, regional, and national attention. So stick around. It's going to be a lot of fun. It will certainly be more fun for us today than yesterday was for a lot of former NFL players. As we will be talking about cut downs to 53 across the National Football League. We will have Ben Arthur of foxsports.com to help us through some of that here in the next segment. Later in the show, we will be joined by our NASCAR analyst, Heather Williams. We talked earlier in the week about Daytona and the youngster that picked up his first victory down at Daytona over the weekend. We'll talk a little bit more about that and what it means heading into this final week of the regular season, as well as an announced Cup Series date for 2025. Get your passports. Let's put it that way. But yeah, it's hump day. Wade, how you holding up?
Man, we're doing very well. Just got back from the Pulaski Citizen offices on the Pulaski Square. And then, I must be doing something right, Mo, because my sister, her office is right next door. She says, hey, walk with me down the street. We're going to Reeves. We're going to lunch, and I'm treating. And I looked at Scott, I looked at Carrie, and I looked at Kelly, and I said, I'll see y'all later. So, good, clean living here in P-Town for a Wednesday. And, yeah, you were exactly right, though. Getting ready to tap in. College football begins tomorrow night. And the NFL, there are a lot of transactions going around, just like yesterday. Some coming, some going.
A lot to keep up with. Too much to keep up with, but we're going to hit on some of the high notes, I guess, as we go along through the show. We'll also be talking a little Braves. Man, they Wade, you heard the start of Proud Mary that Tina Turner does, right? Mm-hmm. We don't do anything nice. We do it all rough. Well, that's kind of the Braves right now. They don't do anything easily. Everything is a grind for the Braves, and last night was no different, even as, it felt like it should have been a little easier. But, they got the dub. That's all that matters. Tough night for Houston up in Philadelphia, but reinforcements are on the way. We'll talk a little bit more about that later in the show. We'll talk, as Wade said, a little college football. And it is Wild and Wacky Wednesday. We will close out the show with some of the weirdest, wildest, and wackiest news we could find from across the globe. And it's pretty weird, wild, and wacky. Looking forward to sharing some of that.
Lives up to the billing.
It absolutely does. It was aptly named Wild and Wacky Wednesday. So yeah, with no further ado, because again, now that high school fall sports have begun, the rundown has become a bit onerous, so let's get you yesterday's results and today's schedule on the rundown.
This is the rundown.
To the rundown we go, and we begin on the volleyball court, where last night Columbia knocked off Tullahoma 3-0. 3 sets to none, also in favor of Eagleville, who defeated Culleoka. It was Murfreesboro Central Magnet with a 3-1 win versus Hume Fogg. Lawrence County defeating Coffee County 3-0. Gallatin took care of Mount Juliet 3-0, as did Loretto over Mount Pleasant. It was Middle Tennessee Christian picking up a 3-2 win versus Providence Christian. Riverdale 3-0 versus Rockvale. Siegel with a 3-2 win versus Oakland. Stewart's Creek knocking off Smyrna 3-0. Spring Hill wins it 3-0 over Marshall County. Summertown with a 3-0 victory over Hampshire. University School of Nashville blanking Columbia Academy 3-0 your final there. And Wilson Central 3, Laverne 0.
On the pitch, Beach with the 1-0 victory over White House in girls soccer. Brentwood with a 3-1 win over Father Ryan. It was Clarksville Northeast 2, Springfield 0. Clarksville Northwest 8, Kenwood, nothing. Columbia Central with the 9-0 victory over Coffee County. Dixon County defeated Lead Academy 7-1. Friendship Christian with an 8-0 win over Ezel Harding. It was Fairview 9, Creekwood nothing. Franklin Road Academy edges Martin Luther King 3-2. It was Nashville Christian with a 5-3 win over Goodpasture. Hendersonville and Green Hill played to a 3-3 draw. Overton edged Hunters Lane 2-1. It was West Creek and Kirkwood playing to a scoreless draw. Lebanon defeated the Middle Tennessee Golden Eagles 2-0. Giles County with a big win 9-0 over Marshall County. Cane Ridge 3, McGavock nothing. Sycamore defeated Montgomery Central 5-1, and Oakland and Mount Juliet also played to a 3-3 draw.
Soccer scoreboard continues from last night. Centennial picks up a 2-1 win versus Nolensville. Portland dispatched White House Heritage. 5-0 was your final there. It was also 5-0 in favor of the Forest Rockets, who defeated Richland last night. Rockvale takes care of Riverdale. 7-1 was your final tally there. It was Siegel defeating Blackman 3-0. Ravenwood knocking off Station Camp 3-2. Stewart's Creek with a 9-0 win versus Laverne. Independence and Summit played to a 2-2 draw. You can read more about it at Main Street Murray. Make sure you check that out. Also, Valor Collegiate 6-0 versus Smyrna. Watertown picks up a 9-0 win versus Upperman. White County, should say, with a 5-2 victory versus Middle Tennessee Christian. Wilson Central 2, Cookeville 1. And rounding out the soccer scoreboard from last night, Huntland defeating Zion Christian 4-0. Major League Baseball scores from last night. The Phillies blanked the Astros. 5-0 was your final score there. 8-6 for the Atlanta Braves. They go 10 innings, but they get it done with the 2-run victory last night over the Twins. In Nashville Sounds action, Charlotte scores 16 runs, just 7 for the Sounds last night. Again, 16-7 was your final there. A lot of runs scored and a lot of points scored last night as the Wings defeat the Aces 93-90 in a very high-scoring affair last night in our lone WNBA tilt.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit more about that one in a second. Volleyball today at 5:30. Gallatin is at Pope John Paul II. At 6 o'clock, Giles County goes to Battle Creek. And also at 6, Riverdale is at Smyrna. On the pitch, Battleground Academy travels to Providence Christian for a 6 o'clock first touch. Also, Lipscomb Academy is at Harpeth Hall at 6. Major League Baseball, 3:05 start for Houston and Philadelphia up at the City of Brotherly Love. You can see it on the MLB Network. Braves and Twins get going tonight at 6:40. That will be seen as well on the Major League Baseball Network, as well as on Bally Sports South. The Sounds continue their series at Charlotte at 5:35 tonight. And in WNBA action, pretty close to a full slate, including a TV doubleheader. At 6, you can see the Sun and the Fever on NBA TV. 7 o'clock, no TV for the Mystics at the Sky. The second half of that TV doubleheader on NBA TV is the Liberty at the Sparks. That's a 9 o'clock start. Also at 9, you've got Minnesota at Phoenix and Atlanta at Seattle. And ladies and gentlemen, that is your rundown. Your top story brought to you, as always, by Piggly Wiggly in Neely's Mill in Columbia. Be sure and check out their delicious daily deli lunch options available until 6 p.m. Also, their hand-cut meats, and everything is cost plus 10% at the cash register. Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill, Columbia, bringing you our top story. And as we said, the Dallas Wings, coming off of a 113-point performance over the weekend, kept the offense rolling against the two-time defending NBA champion Las Vegas Aces, winning that matchup 93-90 last night and weathering a 42-point effort from the best player in the WNBA, A'ja Wilson. But when you come up with 28-7 from Satu Sabali, another 24 points from Natasha Howard, and you're playing with a boatload of confidence right now, again, coming off that 113-110 win over the Sparks on Sunday. Suddenly, Dallas looking like they're going to be somebody that you're going to have to deal with here in the second half or in the post-Olympic portion of the WNBA schedule. Their second 2-game win streak of the season. and snapped a 7-game losing streak against the Aces with that win. Did not see that coming, Wade.
No, certainly didn't. And I started getting notifications as we were leaving the Bridgeforth football game last night that, hey, Vegas is in trouble. And I said, yeah, okay. You know, they're not really in trouble. No, they are in trouble. And I was getting just as many notifications about them being in trouble as I was about Asia Wilson. As you said, the best in the world, but sometimes the best in the world don't matter when the rest of your team is not playing so well. And Becky Hammond said it best. You know, we didn't defend, we fouled, and we didn't rebound. You know, I'm not a basketball whiz, but when you don't do those three things right, it's going to be awful tough to win a game no matter how many points your best player is going for.
Or who you're playing.
Yeah, oh, yeah, exactly. Considering foe, notwithstanding, man, yeah, they couldn't have beat anybody with that performance, it sounds like, last night. Giving up 93 points is brutal for that team.
Dallas improved to 8-22 with that win, and I'm still not sure if that puts them in the playoffs. It does not, in fact. If the playoffs began today, the Wings would not be in, and the Aces would be the number 5 seed. So,
yeah, they have certainly not made it easy on themselves. You know, off to a slow start, but then, man, the steady team. Obviously, we talked a little bit about it yesterday and the performance they've dealt this season. But the Liberty obviously feel like the team to beat. I just don't know that the Aces are going to be able to flip the switch the way that everybody kind of thought, because they have just not ascended to that dominant level that we've seen from them in the regular season. In the WNBA, yeah, there are some upsets that can be had in the postseason, but at the end of the day, it feels like unless you've kind of shown that you're one of those dominant teams in the regular season, I don't like your chances going into the playoffs. And so trailing the Lynx and the Storm in the West and just a few games ahead of the Mercury, their season is quickly looking like it's in turmoil here.
It really does. And, you know, Wade, for the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've kind of been thinking about the Aces and paralleling them with the Braves a little bit, because everything comes back to the Braves for me. But I mean, at what point do you realize, hey, we are not that, you know, we aren't those, as Jock Peterson would say, we're not that team. And like you said, it feels like if they're waiting to flip a switch, I don't know if that switch is wired at this point.
You know, and as we sit, yeah, that's a good point. But as we say that, I'm also, you know, maybe it's the fan in me, you know, cautiously optimistic. But if there's one team that potentially is capable of doing that, I mean, it's the Vegas Aces. I mean, we've talked obviously about Asia Wilson, but I mean, Plum, what she's done. You got a 2-time champion, Alicia Clark, sitting there as your 6th woman, basically. So I mean. If there's a team that you could just maybe stagger into the playoffs and then to flip the switch, and if they get to the finals, you know, then all bets are off. You know, them and the Liberty would be fun to watch again. But I think the big challenge will be, can they get by teams like Minnesota? Can they get by teams like Seattle or, you know, heaven forbid, Phoenix as things continue? And
the thing about it is, one, you don't want to see them in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're sitting here at 18-12 right now. I mean, I don't want to say you're not concerned with them, but it just doesn't strike you as, you know, your older brother's Las Vegas Aces or older sisters.
Yeah, fifth best team overall, trailing Liberty, the Sun, the Lynx, the Storm, and then you get to Vegas, and I don't know, man. Hey, all I'm going to say this too is, you know, we laughed about it a couple months ago when I got to meet Mark Davis out in Vegas, and he had a big smile on his face though when I mentioned the season coming up. He said he wants back to back, and I don't know that he can do anything at this point to get it going. But if there is something, it feels like Vegas is the one team that when they get into the postseason, we saw it right with the Lakers. The Lakers are a team that when you get into the postseason, as bad as they were in the regular season, you know, you probably don't want to see LeBron James, even at this age that he's got, in a postseason series, unless you're the Nuggets. And then you want all the smoke because you own them. But outside of the Nuggets, nobody really probably wants to see them. And I kind of get the feeling that's the same way with the Aces. Nobody really wants to see them, even though it does not look like, your older sister's Aces, like you mentioned.
Yeah. While we're discussing WNBA, I saw something last night, and I've got to do a better job of screenshotting stuff or something because I want to go back to it and I can't. But Angel Reese is like 30 rebounds short, I believe, of the single season record set by fellow former Chicago Sky forward Sylvia Folks. Sylvia had 404 rebounds in a season. Angel has 374. I think she's got 11 games remaining to play. She's going to break that record.
Angel's been, we are set up so beautifully, right? You know, all the talk about Caitlin Clark and all the talk about Angel Reese, these ladies are just getting started. And we're talking about big time records that are falling. And so the WNBA is in fantastic hands. We've had a fantastic season thus far, and the records keep falling, and the quality of play continues to get better and better. I like where this league is headed. Is
this bird magic?
Hard for me to say, but based on everything I've read, I don't see how it couldn't be, right? This, for the WNBA in particular, I'm definitely not recalling this big of a rivalry. I'll tell you that much. And for two teams, it's not as if these teams, the Fever are 7th overall and the Sky are 8th overall. It's not as if we're talking, 1 and 2 in the standings. We are kind of glued to our televisions and glued to social media about the 7th and 8th best teams in the league. And it's because of those two young ladies. They are carrying the torch for us right now and the torch for the league. And I'm just absolutely fascinated to see what happens going forward.
Angel is the only WNBA player ever to record 3 consecutive 20-plus rebound performances. That's now, there are those that would tell you that she's rebounding a lot of her own misses.
And she is, but they all count.
But you still got to go get them. Yeah. Are you going to discount those because they came off of her missed shots? Rebounds are missed shots. I'm not sure how much you can take away from her for that. So anyway, let's go ahead and take our first break of the day here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by TOA of Columbia. When we return to the Lee Company studios, we will spend a little time with Ben Arthur of Fox Sports, talking a little AFC South, a little Titans, a little NFC, what have you. Stick around when we come back after this break. Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
He shoots, and he scores!
Custom Stone Handlers supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
We thrive under the lights. A city of performers, putting on one heck of a show. Headlining night after night. Welcome to Smashville.
Wild and Wacky Wednesday continues right here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton along with Wade Neely, and we are joined now by FoxSports.com's Ben Arthur, who spends the bulk of his time covering and analyzing the AFC South, which includes the Titans. Ben, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. It's been a minute, guys. How are you doing?
It has been a minute, man. We've missed you. And we've tried to get up with you, but man, you have been on the go and busy. And again, you cover the AFC South, so it's not just the Tennessee Titans. So wanted to get a couple of reactions from you after a couple of Titans games. It's like, well, I wasn't there, so But I know you've had a chance to kind of analyze their cuts and what they did to get down to 53 yesterday and that kind of thing. And what are your thoughts about the roster as constructed? What are your thoughts about some of the decisions they had to make to get to where they've gotten to as of right now? Subject to change.
Subject to change is the big one, right? Because you look at some of the numbers, like 5 tight ends. I know they're a little bit low on the offensive, not offensive, outside linebacker. Defensive line, I think they could maybe use another body or two. So the numbers are still going to change, and the Ernest Jones trade with the Rams looks like hasn't been officially processed. So there are going to be some changes there, and excited. At least I think if you're a Titans person, you should be excited about that Ernest Jones move, because that inside linebacker room was a bit of a concern, right? And even before Chance Campbell got hurt and all that. So I think that's going to be a good move for them. But yeah, overall, like you said, kind of subject to change. That they claimed a couple guys today. I know Rashad Weaver, who's been around for the last few years, former 4th round pick. He was waived. Yeah, he was. One of the guys they claimed was a defensive end. I don't remember off of what team, but that was kind of an example of how the rosters are still kind of fluid at this point. So, but yeah, I think overall in totality, I mean, this is a completely different team, like for the Titans, right? I think over the last couple years, specifically this offseason, just working with Brian Callahan, we've seen a lot of turnover. I think you look at the starters, probably 16 of their starters, something like that, is going to be different this year, specifically on the defensive side of the ball. So a lot of change going on. I think they've shored up depth overall, because just with the Titans, I think lack of talent was a big issue with Mike Vrabel in the later years. And I think some of the aggressiveness that Rand has shown is because of just the lack of depth, right? And the failed draft picks. And we saw, Caleb Farley was another guy who just got cut after just playing 12 games as a former first round pick over 3 years.
3 years.
So yeah, it's subject to change, as you said, but I think overall the Titans are in really good shape, and I think this is a competitive team, definitely a team that can contend for a playoff spot.
Competitive, particularly in the AFC South, you think, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've told this to a number of people, but I think the AFC South is one of the most competitive divisions in the NFL. I mean, I know you have the typical, like the AFC North. The AFC North is probably number one, and NFC East, I think, is always really competitive. But the AFC South, I think you start with the Texans, of course, what they were last year, what they should be this year. They should be one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the AFC. But I think right after that, and, Colts, Jags, Titans, I think it's going to be really competitive. And I don't think the Texans are even going to run away with the AFC South like I think other people, national pundits, think, just because of the strength of the schedule and the expectation they're going to have. And these other teams, right? Like I think Anthony Richardson is a big wild card for Indy. Will Levis is a wild card for Tennessee. I think with what they've done around him, if Levis is kind of what they hope he can be, the Titans are a sneaky, dangerous team. And then I think in Jacksonville, they might have the best team they've had around Trevor Lawrence to this point. And so I think it's going to be a really fun division. There's no team that's bad in this division. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
That assessment will encourage Titans fans when you say, I don't think there's a team that's bad in this division, because I think a lot of folks would have thought that if there is a team that's bad in this division, that it might be the Titans. So that's good news for a lot of folks, I'm sure. Ben Arthur of FoxSports.com joining us here on Main Street Sports today. Ben, away from the Titans for just a second, but a name that means a lot in this area, C.J. Beathard cut by the Jaguars yesterday with a
injury settlement.
Explain that, and what is his situation right now?
The injury settlement, honestly, I'm not too sure about the particulars, and it definitely varies kind of from contract to contract.
I guess the question is, what's the injury?
I'm not sure. It was an injury he suffered in one of the preseason games.
Okay.
And I know the Jags, though, they haven't ruled him out from potentially coming back. Like, there are situations where some guys are released because of injury, but they could come back. And I know Trent Baalke, Doug Peterson, they spoke to Jags media, I think, what was it, yesterday? And so they haven't ruled that out. But I think with the Titans, I think they could potentially consider, right, like a third QB. Obviously, Malik Willis isn't in the picture anymore. He has ties to Tennessee, ties to Nick Foles, the new OC under Brian Callahan. So I know, especially kind of with the rules, the way they are, and the value of the quarterback position, the Titans are going to add a third QB. Who is it going to be? Not so sure, but I'm sure that he's someone that they're going to look at, just his experience and actually just thinking like he has connection to Rand as well, because from the San Francisco days as well. Yeah. Right. So I think that's a veteran quarterback that they could possibly look at for sure.
Ben, I'm curious, as you size up some of the moves that the Titans made within the last, well, we thought they were done, or the majority of them were done yesterday, but then we saw Weaver come down today on the chopping block. What move, if any, really kind of maybe caught you off guard in a surprise? Or did any move that the Titans made kind of catch you off guard? Good or bad, I suppose.
There weren't really any big ones that really caught my attention in terms of surprises. I mean, there are guys who I thought had really good camps, who I thought had a really good chance of cracking the initial 53. Like guys like Gabe Judy Lawley, guys like even Matthew Jackson, who apparently is signing with the Jaguars.
Another local kid. I hate to hear that.
Kid from Nashville, yeah. who did well in a limited role last year, special teams guy, and had a really, really strong camp. He had like 3 or 4 picks in camp. So I was kind of surprised at that move. That actually might be the biggest one. So yeah, Matt Jackson for sure. Again, the whole 5 tight ends thing is a big shock for sure. And again, kind of the whole fact about this is kind of subject to change just with roster fluidity. I find it very hard to believe the Titans will carry 5 tight ends into the season. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. And especially with the way Callahan, at least in Cincinnati, we saw them use their tight ends. It just doesn't really make much sense. So I expect some more shuffling there. But yeah, I think those are some of the big ones. I'm trying to think who else moved. But yeah, I'd say Matt Jackson would probably be the biggest one. And then apart from the 5 tight ends making the initial 53.
They only kept 5 because they couldn't keep 10, I suppose. Why stop at 5? I guess the NFL compels you. I'm also curious, too, a guy you mentioned, we talked a little bit about him on the show yesterday. What kind of role or how good can Ernest Jones be after coming over from the Rams for the Titans in your mind?
Yeah, I think he could be very good. And I think he's a perfect, ideal fit for Denard Wilson and what he's building, right? I think it's very clear at this point that this is going to be a very aggressive defense. They're going to press a lot. They're going to blitz a lot. Just honestly, like from the practices I saw in training camp, watching Kenneth Murray, and I know he had his ups and downs in with the Chargers being a former first-round pick, but it feels like he's just rejuvenated playing in Denard Wilson's defense because I feel like he's really able to cut loose and blitz and attack the way I think is what made him kind of that first round pick. He was coming out of Oklahoma. And I think Ernest Jones is another guy who fits really well, complements Kenneth Murray and Jack Gibbons really well. I think he had 4.5 sacks as a Mike, inside linebacker last year. Over 140 tackles last year. So I like it a lot. And again, inside linebacker was a concern for the Titans pretty much the whole offseason. And then with Cedric Gray to this point, not really being out there at all, 4th round pick. And they've just needed another guy there and to get one. And Ernest Jones, who is definitely above average starting caliber inside linebacker. I think it's going to help a lot. And you look at all these moves they've made on defense, and they're not playing around, right? They've really added a lot of veterans, guys who've played a lot to that defense. And just Ernest Jones is just kind of the latest. So I like the move.
And it feels like of those guys that they've added on defense, Ben, it doesn't feel like there's a whole lot of downside to adding them. Most of them are veterans with, past records and that kind of thing. And you feel like, as we've talked with other folks about the Titans, they're going to elevate this defense just because it wasn't especially great previously.
Yeah. And I think it all kind of goes back to what the Titans are trying to build and giving Will Levis, I know he's the quarterback and on offense, but I think you want to give your young quarterback kind of the best possible team around him, right? And I think for these couple years, 1-2 seasons, however, we don't know how long some of these guys will be around Tennessee, but I think they've done a really good job of propping up this team, propping up the defense, and hopefully, and again, this goes back to how bad the Titans were drafting the past few years, which made these kind of moves necessary, right? It's why you have to get a L'Jarius Sneed because Caleb Farley didn't pan out. It's why you have to give Calvin Ridley $92 million because Treylon Burks didn't pan out. It's all these guys you're adding to fill out the roster because the draft picks that were supposed to be ascending into these roles by this time aren't there or they're not on the team, period. So So yeah, kind of took advantage of the cap space they had, those holes, plugged it in with a lot of like kind of veterans, above average caliber players, and hopefully with the guys they've been drafting this year and last year, when those guys they've brought in this year start to age out, right? Hopefully you have natural replacements in-house to where you don't have to be so dependent on outside guys moving forward. So I think it all makes sense if you look at what the Titans are doing, because they were so talent deficient.
Ben Arthur of FoxSports.com joining us here on Main Street Sports today. And Ben, that last phrase that you just used, so talent deficient, as you talk to people across the league, did people realize at the time that some of those draft picks were made that this was the way it was going to wind up? I know the draft is a crapshoot at best on the front end, and you don't necessarily know, but did people know? I mean, did people know that John Robinson was not doing a great job in terms of evaluating talent from the get?
Yeah, I think initially people gave the benefit of the doubt to the Titans, right? Because we can talk about how John Robinson's tenure ended, but at the beginning, it was great, right? Like, we know what the Titans were before he got to Tennessee. That first draft class, Kevin Byard, Derrick Henry, Jack Conklin the year after that, 2019, Amani Hooker, Jeffrey Simmons, David Long Jr. So they had a lot of success early, right? And it kind of culminated in that 2021 number 1 seed run. And so they were able to assemble some good teams, some good good players. They drafted well in the beginning. But then I think right in the latter years, just some risks that didn't pan out. And that happens, as you said, Mo, like you don't, I mean, it's a crapshoot a lot of the times, but you just think back, right? Like Caleb Farley, there were all those red flags, right? When he was drafted, and there was the upside, right? Everyone knew what the upside was, but all the red flags, and from a physical standpoint, and all those have kind of turned out to be true. Julio Jones swing and miss, right? He had the red flags in terms of the soft tissue stuff at the end of his tenure in Atlanta. Those things came to manifest itself with the Titans only lasting 10, 11 games. There are so many moves like that. And then the AJ Brown thing, right? I can't forget about that, right?
And you're being kind in not mentioning the Isaiah Wilson situation.
I forgot. Yeah, I've been forgot. There's so many moves, right?
Right. And that's the thing. There's so many.
And so, that goes back to my initial point, right? Like in the beginning with John Robinson, they did a good job, right? But then in those last 2 years to 3 years or 2.5 years or so, the bad draft picks, the bad trades, all those things add up to where you had what the Titans were last year and in 2022. So I think, to go back to your initial question, no, I don't think anyone around the league was really all that, like people were saying, oh, the Titans have no idea what they were doing, because the years before that, it seemed like they knew what they were doing. And remember how the talk was just a few years ago about the culture that Mike Vrabel has in Tennessee, and everything seemed so great. And then it kind of came crashing down. And so I don't think anyone really predicted it. But I think, again, one move after another bad move over years, it just kind of builds up. And so that's kind of what happened.
Wade?
I was just thinking, a field goal by the Bengals misses in the playoffs in that 2021 postseason, and who the heck knows what happens, and who the heck knows if we're having any of these conversations right now. Football is such a wild game played on such razor-thin margins. But, Ben, you make a great point that a lot of these moves early were working, and it maybe just bought some, false credibility, or just kind of a sense, a house of cards almost type situation emerged. And then, it seemed like last year at points, maybe even the last 2 years, you look out and on certain Sundays, and 2 years ago, especially with the injuries, you're like, some of these guys are borderline shouldn't even be on practice squads, let alone playing meaningful minutes. So to both of y'all's points, that is a tremendous thing. One thing I did want to ask you before we get you out of here, Ben, though, is the Titans open up at Chicago. We have the Texans at Indy in week 1, and the Jags are at Miami. How does week 1 play out in the AFC South? To me, it seems like the Titans got a pretty solid matchup. You would assume the Jags are going to be a little bit of a underdog on the road at Miami, and then Texans at the Colts. How do you break down week 1 in the AFC South next weekend?
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. I think, well, let's kind of take it team by team. I think the Titans, I mean, look, the Bears should look like a sneaky good team. Like, we don't know how rookie quarterbacks pan out, and who knows what Caleb Williams, I think he's going to be great over time, but they have a good team around him. They have a great defense. Kevin Byard, of course, is on that defense, but they have a really good secondary, good front, good weapons around. I mean, he has 3 guys who should be like number 1 receivers, Adunze, was it DJ Moore, Keenan Allen. So I don't think it'll be a cakewalk for the Titans, especially playing on the road. But I think, to Callahan's credit, when your starters do get so much time in the preseason, it does maybe limit the chance of like maybe getting caught off guard a little bit week 1. And so I do like the Titans' chances, even though the Bears, I think, are a sneaky good team in the NFC. Just, I think what we've seen from the Titans in the preseason, how that offense is looking, the moves they've made, I think they're in good shape. The Texans-Colts game should be a lot of fun because, the AFC South came down to that in Week 18, and there's been a lot of chirping back and forth, particularly early in the offseason, like between C.J. Stroud and Zaire Franklin, and so that's going to be a really fun matchup in Indianapolis, and again, I think the Colts are a really massive wild card. Like, if Anthony Richardson pans out, if he stays healthy, if Jonathan Taylor stays healthy, I think they have the best chance of toppling the Texans in the AFC South from a pure upside standpoint, right? So that's going to be a fun game, and it's in Indy, so I wouldn't be so shocked if the Colts won that game. And then, like you said, tough go for the Jags in Miami, probably. So I kind of like the Dolphins in that game. But yeah, if I had to say, I think Titans probably get the win week 1 against Chicago. Colts beat the Texans, kind of put people on alert a little bit, and then Miami kind of takes down the Jags to start the season.
I had completely lost track of this, but can either of you gentlemen name the Colts backup quarterback right now?
Well, they have Sam Ehlinger.
But he's listed as the 3rd, and he might be on his way out. Who is the true backup quarterback for the Colts right now? And it is a household name. Let's put it that way.
It's Joe Flacco.
Right, there we go. Yeah, I was unaware that I knew Flacco was gone from Cleveland, but I didn't know that he was in the AFC South. So that was news to me when I was scrambling through the depth chart there today.
It's news to me as well, and
we could be treated. We could be treated to a little Flacco mania yet again
at some point
about Richardson's injury issues.
Well, and you just feel like Richardson's kind of boom or bust, I think, for Indy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I trust Shane Steichen. You know, I think he's going to put Anthony Richardson in the best chances, opportunities to succeed. I mean, look at what he did with Gardner Minshew last year. They had a top 10 offense, top 10 scoring offense with Jonathan Taylor missing 7 games. Their right tackle missed 7 games. Anthony Richardson obviously wasn't there. They had a lot of injuries, a lot of different issues going on around the team. Still had a top 10 offense. Gardner makes the Pro Bowl, I think, as an alternate. And look, there's a whole part of Steichen's playbook that we haven't seen with Anthony Richardson. The whole RPO stuff with Jonathan Taylor. Richardson and Jonathan Taylor only played 2 snaps together last year. 2 snaps. So there's a whole component of this offense we haven't seen, and Anthony Richardson is still kind of getting his feet under him. And look, they're going to be the ups and the downs. He's still very inexperienced. He's still maybe not polished, obviously, but The talent is there. We saw it in a lot of spurts in the 4 games he played in last year. And so I trust Shane Steichen, his offensive genius, offensive mind, so to speak, to really put Anthony Richardson in that offense in the best kind of opportunities to succeed.
Ben Arthur of FoxSports.com joining us here on Main Street Sports today. You can find him on Twitter or on X, however you care to refer to it, at Ben Y. Arthur. Ben, we appreciate you taking some time with us. Where are you going to be week 1?
Week 1. I think I'm just staying here. I'm staying home. The plan was initially to go to Indy Texans, of course, but the company wants me home this week for week 1. So that's what I'll do. So I'll just keep a tab on all the games from home. Yeah.
All right. The best seat in your house. Have fun with that. We will catch up with you soon, man. Thanks.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
All right. Hey, when we continue here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, we'll be talking a little baseball. So stay tuned when we come back to the Lee Company studios after this.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today. Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
August 28th, 2010, Tim Hudson struck out a career-high 13 batters over 7 innings, and the Atlanta offense gave him some early support with a 6-run second inning and 10 runs over 4, as the Braves stopped a 4-game skid with a 12-3 win over visiting Florida. Matt Diaz hit a leadoff home run in the second, and Brian McCann added a 3-run double in the frame, and that'd be all Huddy needed. But he'd get more as Eric Hinske and Martin Prado each homered as well. That was this day in Braves history. And before we continue talking Major League Baseball, shout out to Nashville Sounds outfielder Brewer Hicklin, friend of the show. Come on Main Street Sports today and get things happen for you. Hit his 20th home run in last night's 16-7 loss to Charlotte. But in doing so, he became the first player in Sounds history to record 20 homers and 40 stolen bases. Also became the first player in AAA baseball since 2005 to put those numbers up: 20 homers, 40 steals. Yeah, so he has 20 home runs. I cannot find his steals because the Sounds website is not cooperating with me, but he's got upwards of 40 stolen bases, obviously. So congratulations to the former UAB multi-sport standout. That's pretty big. 2040. First time in almost 20 years at the AAA level. First time ever for a Nashville Sound.
Yeah, that's getting it done in a number of different ways. Talk about making your impact felt. Couple different guys, putting up similar type numbers at the MLB level, but it's cool to see our guy Brewer Hicklin getting it done for Nashville.
For sure. This is not. Wait a minute. Stop. Here we go. Stolen bases. 41 steals.
There we go.
So obviously leads the team in both those categories. So congratulations to Brewer. Yeah, Braves got up 4-0 up at Minnesota last night. Bullpen played Minnesota back into the game, 4-4 going into the 10th. The Braves score 4 in the top of the 10th. Bullpen still can't stop, gives up 2 in the bottom, but they hold on for an 8-6 Braves victory. Schwellenbach goes 4 2/3, strikes out 8, winds up with a no decision, obviously, because he didn't get through 5. Michael Harris with a home run early for the Braves. I think I saw the Braves are 11-4 over their last 15 games. Doesn't feel like it because, again, everything has been a grind for them, but you can't really argue with the results. They are trying to keep pace with the Phillies and stay ahead of the posse for that final wild card spot. And so far so good.
Yeah, just stacking victories. Just buy a ticket, ride the it ain't the Wilson County Fair, but buy a ticket to the roller coaster because you're on one right now if you're a Braves fan.
It's funny. That's exactly what Brandon Gaudin and CJ Nitkowski were saying last night. Just buckle up, because the roller coaster is in full effect. The Braves are 3 games clear of the Mets for that final wild card spot right now. 5.5 ahead of San Francisco. So they're starting to open up a little distance in that aspect, but not getting a whole lot of help from Houston right now. They are still 6 games behind Philadelphia for the NL East, following Philadelphia's 5-0 win last night as Justin Verlander goes 5 innings, gives up 4 runs, and takes the loss, and Nola with the shutout. So the Braves and Twins play at 6:40 tonight. Chris Sale, once again, going for his 15th win. He is 14-3 with a 2.62 ERA. David Festa, 2-3 with a 5.20, will start for Minnesota. And here in about 10 minutes, Philadelphia and Houston will get going. Spencer Arrighetti, 6-11 with a 4.94, getting the ball for Houston. Taiwan Walker, 3-5 with a 6.26, going for the host Phillies. So could be some runs scored in this one. That's all I'm saying.
Could be. It's worth pointing out, though, the last time that the Phillies shut out the Astros won 3 straight and won the World Series back in 22. So, and then they also threw a no-hitter against them in the World Series the next game after they got shut out. So I don't know if Arrighetti's going to throw a no-no today, but maybe.
Hey, stranger things have happened, clearly.
Yeah, if you're into hashtag trends, maybe there's one for you right there.
Hey, help is on the way for the Astros. Jason Hayward is set to sign to presumably slot in where Kyle Tucker had been before injury and lack of production. So Hayward released last week by the Dodgers, as we mentioned, a couple of nights after a pinch hit game-winning home run for the Dodgers. What have you done for me lately, I guess? But yeah, hit 208 with 6 home runs and 4 steals in 63 games for the Dodgers. But he's a guy that, plays stellar defense, former All-Star. And, maybe a change in leagues kind of helps Houston catch lightning in a bottle with Hayward one last time. I was kind of hoping he'd wind up back here in Atlanta again, but Houston has picked him up, and we'll see what that looks like.
Yeah, they've tried everything. Tucker was playing like a man possessed to start the year. He was the reason that Houston was kind of even hanging around as long as they were until his injury. So they've tried everything since he went out in early June. And if nothing else, this will be pretty cool. I'll get on the team shop, and then me and Sis will have matching Braves and Astros Hayward jerseys now at this point.
Oh, your sister's got a Hayward jersey?
She's got the Hayward. She's got a couple, but that's the one that's her guy. Nice. So she will be excited for me, I suppose, in this sense. But yeah, she probably would have wanted him back in Atlanta as well.
That'll be pretty cool. I'd love to see a picture of the two of y'all in your matching Hayward jerseys. You with Houston, her with Atlanta. That'll be cool.
It will be cool, except for the last time we took pictures of Houston versus Atlanta. It didn't work out well in my favor. We had Neely versus Neely in the World Series, and yeah.
House divided, huh? Yeah.
It was tough.
She doesn't give you too much grief over that, does she?
No, we took a whole series. We had one night, the photos were my Travis Scott versus her Outcast shirts. We really dug deep into it, and yeah, she got me the better. It's a lot more fun when I can just flat out disagree with the other team. I don't mind Atlanta, and so that's one what made it tough. The Phillies, I'm okay with. You can flat out just get your rooting interest on whenever you get against Philadelphia. So
there you go. Our number
one. And by the way, real quick, the Pirates have officially blown a lead. They were up like 9-1 with Skeens throwing, and it's now 11-10 Cubs.
Oof. Oh, and I think O'Neal Cruz made his debut in center field today.
2 for 4 for Cruz.
Former 6'7" shortstop, now 6'7" center fielder, O'Neal Cruz. And from the moment, as long as he was coming through the Pittsburgh organization, it was, when are they going to move him? He's too big to play shortstop, blah, blah, blah. I guess he probably stayed there longer than a lot of people thought he would. And, wow. So now Cruz is in center as they get ready for 2025. And that type performance today just puts you more in the mind of getting ready for 2025, obviously. So, tough going for Pittsburgh, but at least they get to watch one of the tallest players in baseball patrol center field for them for the rest of the season.
Yep, and if that holds, that's a good win for the Cubs. They still kind of sneak around the chicken coop. It looked like they were left for dead a couple weeks ago, and it was going to be the Cardinals in that division, maybe giving chase at the end of the wild card standings. But now the Cubs have come up out of nowhere.
Yeah, they put together some pretty good wins, so we will be keeping an eye on that. Let's take a break here and head into hour number 2 of Wild and Wacky Wednesday on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we come back, we'll talk a little college football. Stay tuned after this.
We thrive under the lights. A city of performers, putting on one heck of a show. Headlining night after night. Welcome to Smashville.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily, as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
Hour number 2 of Wild and Wacky Wednesday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, starts right now. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. We're coming to you from the Lee Company studios of our respective homes, and we're talking a little college football. I saw this after we got off the air yesterday. Friend of the show, John Bryce of Football Scoop. Alabama shutting down Top Collective in a move that industry experts tell Football Scoop is likely just the start of myriad more. The University of Alabama's top name, image, and likeness collective, the Walk of Champions, is shutting down. And basically, it seems that with more schools moving toward actually facilitating NIL under their own umbrellas, that's going to kind of bring those third-party NIL collectives. I don't know if put them in danger is the right phrase or not, but make them a little less necessary, I guess.
Yeah, interesting news. And for whatever reason, Alabama for a school that had everything just about the way that they wanted it. This new era of college football has not been the greatest for them. Seconds after Michigan defeats them in the Rose Bowl, they had the commercial advertising, "We need your donations for NIL," as part of their Alabama collective. And so that got, everybody kind of drugged them a little bit for that on the internet. I mean, they just have not flourished in the sense that you would think that Alabama would flourish. It seems like just turning on a switch, right? I mean, Alabama good, NIL good, Alabama NIL very good, but it hasn't been easy for them. And now as a result, we're about to see. I mean, a lot of other people would say, well, Alabama was running their own collective behind the scenes before, just in the shadows. And
there are those that would say that.
There are those, a lot of people. But now that we're in this kind of open, transparent landscape, they have struggled for whatever reason to take hold in this regard.
And, with this happening with this Alabama collective, it kind of puts other collectives on warning as well, like Spire that works a lot with Tennessee and others of that ilk. If again, the schools are going to be bringing NIL in-house, which after the House settlement, donors can donate their money to schools instead of to the collective, still get their tax deduction, and then the schools conduct the NIL payments. So it's almost like you're kind of getting rid of the middleman there to some degree. So
yeah, and not yesterday, but two visits ago with James out of Cleveland, that's kind of when I asked the question, where are we in the landscape? Are we just setting the raft out to sea, or are we all the way approaching the other shoreline? And she kind of said, hey, we're kind of just getting started. And it's stuff like this coming out. Even collectives are trying to figure things out. The rules are so fluid and everything is changing on a weekly basis, that unless you are either first to market or sharpest to market, you're really going to struggle with some of this stuff. And it's just going to continue to be this way, I think, until we eventually reach that other shoreline and things are fully stabilized in terms of payment, true payment for players at that point.
Yeah, and kind of to your analogy there, I'm not even sure the raft is built yet.
In many regards, no. In many regards, not. Tom Hanks, we're just getting started over there.
Speaking of NIL, like father, like son, Shedeur Sanders has signed a deal with Nike. Nearly 30 years after Dion reached a shoe deal with the apparel company. So, NIL is everywhere and everybody's involved in it.
Yep. 2.5 million social media followers. I mean, he's kind of one of your stars, right? From an NIL standpoint. And, Colorado probably not going to be very good again. The question will be, how good of a season does Shedeur Sanders have? How good of a season does Travis Hunter have? But in terms of marketing, in terms of NIL, those are two of your biggest and brightest. And that's one of your biggest and brightest programs in terms of marketability. So kind of cool to see him getting that deal. What'd you say, the first one with Nike, right? For in this regard.
And as you said, Colorado not great, 4-8 last year, 1-8 in Pac-12 play. They're headed to the Big 12 this time around. But Shedeur,
go ahead. Sorry.
No, Shedeur threw for 3,200 yards, 27 touchdowns with just 3 picks. So make of that what you will, I guess. But yeah, to your point, he's certainly marketable. And if he's marketable, then Nike's going to be all about it. So,
and this is interesting too, because I'm reading more here. This is their first real foray into football. They have, had deals with guys like Bronny James. You may have heard of him. And ladies like Juju Watkins and Caitlin Clark. So they've kind of gone in on the basketball train, but they're really kind of just getting started with college football. And it looks like they've also got a smaller deal with the USC kids, the Branch brothers, who are coming in, Zion and Zachariah, I think, to a much smaller degree. But yeah, this seems like it could be the tip of the iceberg, and Sanders is the perfect guy to come along because he is the superstar. If the Heisman were to be given out today, just from a marketing standpoint, it'd be a runaway for either him or Hunter, I feel like. So from that angle, this is a shrewd bit of business for Nike because the impact is going to be there for sure in terms of eyeballs.
And no doubt. And again, we don't know how good Colorado's going to be or if they're going to be good. But
and don't you ask the coach how good they're going to be either. Or I got news for you. You won't be allowed to ask.
Won't be asking any more questions. That's it.
Sir.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for that warning. I'm trying to look. There's an article here on NCAA.com. They've got quarterbacks broken down by different categories to consider, and among the favorites is Shedeur Sanders, along with Jalen Milroe, Dylan Gabriel, Quinn Ewers, Jackson Dart, and Carson Beck. They are your favorites for the Heisman as quarterbacks. Sleepers: Brady Cook of Missouri, Noah Fifita of Arizona, Virginia Tech's Kyron Drones, who's coming in here this weekend to First Bank Stadium taking on the Commodores, and Haynes King of Georgia Tech. Transfers: Ohio State's Will Howard, UCF's KJ Jefferson, Notre Dame's Riley Leonard, Grayson McCall of NC State, DJ Uiagalelei from Florida State, maybe not so much, and Cam Ward from Miami of Florida are your transfers of note in that hunt. Back from injury: Jalen Daniels from Kansas, Cam Rising from Utah, Connor Wigman from Texas A&M. First-year starters: Tennessee's Nico Iamaleava. Yeah, Nico. Oklahoma's Jackson Arnold, Kansas State's Avery Johnson, Southern California's Miller Moss, Garrett Nussmeier of LSU, and true freshman Dylan Raiola of Nebraska. So let's see. Again, they've got a bunch of quarterbacks listed on this NCAA article, but Shedeur Sanders certainly in the mix for Heisman consideration, and I'm sure that did not hurt in his negotiations with Nike.
Oh yeah, it will be fun. It'll be fun to watch. Vegas got them listed at roughly 6 wins this season, which is an improvement from last year. And man, they were must-see TV for the first 5 games for sure last year, and then things kind of went off a cliff. But I think a lot of folks will be tuned in again this year. You mentioned Dylan Gabriel for Oregon. That could be a straight-up electric pairing with him coming in right on the heels of what Bo Nix did there. He could be fun to watch as Oregon potentially eyeing a Big Ten title in their very first season of play. Imagine that. You win the Big Ten and the Heisman in your first season in that new league. That would be bonkers.
That would be, yeah. You kind of indescribable right there. That'd be a heck of a double right there. Big 12 still exploring more folks, including UConn, which again, we've realized that geography kind of goes out the window when you're talking about college football alliances or groupings or leagues or whatever you want to call them at this point, because, well, I mean, I guess if you're in West Virginia, why not be in UConn, right? But 12 of the 16 Big 12 schools would have to vote to approve any new member. And apparently there is some question among the membership, even though Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark seems sold, others in the league aren't so sure that UConn is a fit or is ready for the Big 12. They've already brought Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah in for this year. But, again, Connecticut has had 5 winning seasons as a member of the Big East, but they've been to a bowl twice since 2011, and they've not finished better than 6-7 since 2011. So
crazy to think about, but here's one that will make your head explode. Hope you're ready for it. There's an article on SI. What does UConn joining the Big 12 mean for Gonzaga and its efforts to join the Big East? So I know the geography part really gets to you. So
it really does, man.
Gonzaga Big East, baby. Buckle up. It could be coming your way if things break a certain direction.
Goodness gracious. Well, isn't Creighton in the Big East? Is Creighton's in the Big East, right?
Yeah.
So what's a few hundred more miles? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just, stop over, just play some neutral site games in Creighton. You don't got to fly all the way up to Spokane.
Goodness gracious. Let's take a break here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we return to the Lee Company studios, we will be joined by our NASCAR analyst, Heather Williams of WCYB TV out of Johnson City. Stay tuned when we come back.
Do you want to be a bad man? Yes, you do. Do you want to taste sweet salvation underneath the summer moon? Do you need another hand now? Yes, you do. Go see Miss Josie down on Columbus Avenue. All right, Columbus Avenue.
Robertson County Chancery Court is hosting an in-person court auction Saturday, September 7th at 10 a.m. Buy up to 9.46 acres of beautiful Robertson County land, selling in 2 tracts. Each tract includes water and approved soil areas. Located at 4637 Boyd Holland Road. Join us Saturday, September 7th at 10 a.m. Sales subject to court approval. For more details, call 615-384-5650 today.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com. Welcome back into Wild and Wacky Wednesday. There we go. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. In the final segment, we'll be bringing you the weirdest, wildest, and wackiest news from across the globe. But right now, we're going to talk a little NASCAR with friend of the show, Heather Williams of WCYB TV out of Johnson City. Heather, good afternoon.
Hey, I guess it's a good afternoon. It would have been a better afternoon if the Royals could have swept the Indians. But 2 out of 3. Hey, look, 3 out of 4 at their place. I'll take it.
There you go. There you go. I mean, we all tend to get greedy when we get the first few games of a series. You want to get them all, and so it's tough. It's tough when it plays out that way. But if somebody,
yeah, Heather, you may not be greedy, but I may or may not have a small futures bet on the Royals to win the division. So greedy is of the utmost importance when you're trying to win a bet like that. So I was hoping for the full suite.
It's fair, but this team won like 30 games last year. I mean, I am enjoying every bit of this ride, even a blown lead when you're a game out of first place. It's going to be okay.
Yeah, you're playing with house money to use the gambling analogy there.
For sure.
Baby steps. Heather, tell us more about Harrison Burton.
Oh, goodness. I mean, first of all, I love Harrison. He's such a good kid. He's a talented race car driver. Probably got moved up to the Cup Series way too soon. He did. But seriously, I mean, it's like you got a kid. You got a kid. He's super talented, right? Your team's not doing that well. You jump up from AA up to the big leagues, and they're not ready. And that's basically. I mean, he was in the Xfinity Series, but that's basically kind of what happened to Harrison. He wasn't quite ready for the big leagues. I mean, I think he is now. I think he showed that this weekend, but it was too late. He had already lost his ride for next year. He's not going to be in that 21 car next year. He's being replaced by Hendersonville's Josh Berry, as a matter of fact.
Oh, wow.
But he is a super talented race car driver, and I'm happy for him for sure. It certainly makes things interesting. This is why NASCAR is not like any other stick and ball sport out there, because Harrison was the last place driver that runs full time, won a race. He is still the last place driver that runs full time, but he's in the playoffs.
And doesn't this make it a little easier for him to get a ride for 25?
Not necessarily because of where it happened, because it happened at Daytona. I mean, Daytona is one of those races where a lot of people only win one race of their career or a couple of races of their career, and one of them's Daytona. I mean, you look at Derek Cope or Trevor Bayne. Those were drivers that Cope actually won 2 races, but Bayne only won 1, and it was at Daytona. It takes some skill to win at Daytona. You have to be a good driver. I mean, you and I could not go to Daytona and win at Daytona. But no, I think I can speak for you too. This one,
maybe on easy difficulty, I could do it.
Even still, it's a lot. I've done a drive around there, and it's just a different animal than a lot of places. Especially when you're running, 2 inches from each other. And that's why it is a little bit of a great equalizer, right? Because you could be a great driver, you could do everything right. Somebody makes the tiniest mistake, it takes out 20 cars, you don't even have time to react. And so because he won at Daytona, probably not. He's probably going to end up where was going to end up anyway, which sounds like probably back in the Xfinity Series, which is not a bad thing at all. Cole Custer went back to the Xfinity Series after a year in the Cup Series that didn't really go the way he planned. He won the Xfinity Series championship. He's in the contention for another one this year, and he's going back to Cup Series next year. So it's fine, but I don't know if this really changes people's opinion on Harrison. I think people knew Harrison was talented, just not ready for Cup yet.
Okay. All right. Bigger win for Harrison or bigger win for Wood Brothers?
I mean, probably in the grand scheme of things, that's tough, man, because your first win is always big, right? But for Wood Brothers, it's Wood number 100, which they had been sitting on for 5 years, I think. Ryan Blaney was driving for the Wood Brothers when they won the last time. They've had Harrison and Matt Benedetto in between. So that's tough. It's big for both of them because of the number, right? It's never greater than number 1, right? It's such a great thing to celebrate your first win. But then win 100, that's a landmark for Wood Brothers. So I called the draw. It's 50-50.
On the flip side of things, Heather, I'm here just as much for the racing as I am the drama sometimes. Bring me up to speed. What is Brad Keselowski not happy with after last weekend?
Big track racing, super speedway racing. I mean, everybody.
Life in general.
I mean, I think it's just the frustration of super speedway racing, honestly, and luck. I mean, he hasn't had the greatest luck the last few weeks, so I just think that's frustrating for him. It's frustrating for a lot of people. A lot of people say things and go off on tangents on things that aren't really that important or even that much of an issue when they leave Daytona, because Daytona's Daytona, and it's like the straw that broke the camel back, right? There can be a lot of things going on and just picking, and then that one little straw just sets you off. And so he's fine. He's in the playoffs. He's fine. He'll be fine. It's fine.
He was, yeah. I mean, I get the frustration, I suppose. You know, you got a pretty good car. You're basically in the top 5 or top 10 all day long. And then it seems kind of like some nitpicking, you know, I guess in his regard. But like, I kind of side with you, though. It seems like, hey, you're doing okay. It could have been worse, it sounds like, for Brett Keselowski.
Yeah, I mean, it's super speedway racing. Do you think that Bubba Wallace is happy going there and running 5th and losing 20 points to where he was because the 34th place driver won the race? I mean, nobody leaves Daytona happy except for whoever wins it, ever.
Heather Williams of WCYB TV joining us here on Main Street Sports today as we talk a little racing. So Darlington's next, and we got a lot of nervous folks going into this one, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know that they're all that nervous, to be honest with you, just from the perspective of it's certainly possible that Bubba or Ross could point their way in, but it's not probable. I mean, they're far enough back that Chris Buescher, that's the Dale Jr. joke, Christopher Buescher calls him Christopher, that Chris Buescher would really have to have a bad day for him not to make it. Like, it would have to be catastrophic, which certainly can happen, or Bubba, but basically Bubba and Ross and Kyle Busch and Eric Jones and everybody else is not in the playoffs outside of probably Ty Gibbs and Martin Truex Jr. Everybody else is going in there thinking, we just need to win. Like, we need to win. We need to get as many points as we can along the way and try to win, run up front all day, because that's the easiest way, as we found out last week with Harrison Burton. That's the easiest way to get yourself in the playoffs, is just win the race. So they're nervous, yes, but it's not like it would have been if we were go into this week with the point differential we had last week, which was 1 point, right? Bubba was 1 point out. Now it's 21 points, I think, something like that. That's a lot to make up in a race. Certainly doable with stage points, but he's probably just going in this weekend with the attitude, we got to win.
Yeah. How disappointing a season is it for Bubba, for Ross, for Busch if they don't make the playoffs?
Well, certainly disappointing, especially for Bubba and Ross, because they have absolutely run well enough to make the playoffs. If you look at just the pure points, taking out the guys that got in on wins, they're ahead of Joey Logano, I believe. They're ahead of Daniel Suarez. They're ahead of Austin Cindric. They're ahead of certainly Harrison Burton. So they've had playoff seasons, but they're kind of like that 2 seed that gets upset by the 8 seed in the NCAA or in the conference tournament, right? I mean, it happens. Should the 8 seed be in there? No. But you know what you should have done? Take care of business and win a race, and when you have to worry about it. So definitely disappointing, but it was all things that they could control for the most part. A little bit better. I mean, obviously you get caught in wrecks and things that aren't your fault, but a little bit finish here, bit better finish here, maybe not a pit mistake there, and then all of a sudden you're in there and you don't have to worry about it.
So as you go into Darlington, what are you expecting then?
Aggression, and Darlington, just because people are going to be so desperate, not only at the bottom end where those guys are trying to race in and they're not in, but also at the top end, because there are 3 guys racing for the championship of the regular season and the bonus points that come with that, in Tyler Reddick, who's 17 points up on Kyle Larson, who is then 1 additional point up on Chase Elliott. So all 3 of those guys are racing for that regular season championship. And while it's certainly Tyler's to lose, 17 points when you're running at the front of the field and someone's in the middle is easy to make up, especially with stage points. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see if Kyle Larson can kind of not be Kyle Larson, if that makes sense, because he is the guy that either wins or crashes out. And so he doesn't have a lot of in between. Somebody put out a graph on Twitter last week. The guys that have the biggest differentials in their finish throughout the season, like their best finish and their worst finish and their swings. And Kyle by far has the biggest swings of anyone in the garage area because he just goes for it. So, racing conservatively for points is not really his style. So you kind of feel like if he's going to win the championship, he's probably going to have to win the race at Darlington. Whereas I talked to Tyler Reddick this week, and they're just going in trying to have good, consistent run, pick up every point they can. So seeing that battle at the front end, different styles of guys going for the championship, I think will be really interesting.
Heather, we've got a couple questions about next year. It's never too early to look ahead to next year, but one that I wanted to ask that's near and dear to our hearts. What does Nashville being bumped up to maybe the earliest, I think, that it's ever been bumped up? They're going to race June 1st next year. Is that a surprise to you? And if so, or maybe even if not, what does that mean for race fans in that? Does that do anything for next year by being bumped up a couple weeks?
Well, hopefully they'll make it not as hot, right? So I think that's good. Where we've been racing in Nashville.
We'll see.
Yeah, well, I mean, it can be 90 in March. I get that in Tennessee. But I think, there's a better chance of better weather, maybe not as hot, maybe not as humid as it has been later into June and July where the races sat since it came back onto the schedule. So I think that's a good thing. Other than that, I don't know if it makes much of a difference. I think that, just kind of having that summer date and I think that Nashville is a part of the bracket challenge, correct, for junior. So I think that'll be big for Nashville just to be a part of that kind of in-season tournament. It'll add a little bit more extra juice to the Nashville race that maybe sometimes the summer races don't really have, because it just starts to feel like you're not close enough to the playoffs to really be racing for something, even though you are, because every game is important, every win is important in the sport. But I just think that'll be good from a perspective of extra juice for Nashville this next summer.
If it's not as hot, that certainly would be a nice perk. I'm all, whatever you got to do to get that taken care of, I'm in favor of.
Well, it has a better chance in beginning of June than it does in the end of June or middle of July.
Yeah.
We're seeing some reports. Apparently, NASCAR is going south of the border for a Cup Series event next year.
Yeah, they announced
as
that
well.
officially. They have announced that officially yesterday. They're going to Mexico City to run the F1 course down there in Mexico City.
2 weeks after Nashville, it looks like.
Yeah, I think that's correct. I don't have the schedule right in front of me. I've been working on some other stuff today, so I have it right in front of me.
Hey, here we go. Buckle up. June 15th next year, a 3-person show, all 3 of us live from Mexico City. Who says no?
Let's do it. I'm in. I'm absolutely in.
I would do it. I don't know if I could get time off from work, but I could certainly try.
Even better, we could fly after the Nashville race, go ahead and prep down in Mexico City for the 2 weeks before.
Hang out.
Maybe we could go prep on the beach somewhere in Mexico and then go on into Mexico City.
I mean,
we didn't necessarily say where we'd be prepping. But Mexico City is at altitude, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
What does that change, if anything, Heather?
I think temperature has more to do with the effects on things like engines and performance than altitude does. I mean, NASCAR doesn't race a ton at altitude. I mean, I guess Bristol's in the mountains. They've raced some in Denver in the past, or Mile High. Portland, which I don't know how high that is. I know there's some mountains out that way. So I don't really know for sure, but I think that temperature affects the cars more than the altitude would. But I'm not sure. That's an interesting question.
First Cup Series event outside the U.S. since 1958.
Points paying. They ran an exhibition race and they've run exhibition races in Canada and Japan, I believe, since then. But they've been exhibition races.
Okay. So there were no points on the line.
Correct.
Cool. What do you feel like this means? I mean, I'm reading a statement from Senior Vice President Ben Kennedy. This is a historic moment for our sport. We've been bold in our global growth strategy, so there's no better option to take the next step than racing at the iconic Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez in Mexico City. But what do you feel like this means for NASCAR and the sport?
Well, Ben particularly has made no bones about the fact that he wants NASCAR to be up there competing with F1 for the premier racing series in the world. And the only way you do that is to go other places in the world. You can't just race in the Southeast and expect people in Brazil to want to watch you or people in Europe to want to watch you. So this is the first step towards getting international races. This is the first international race. I think Mexico was an important market for them just because they have a series in Mexico. They've raced some other series, not Cup Series, but Xfinity in Canada. So they've got a series in Canada as well. But they've already got to, cross over into the Canadian market as far as their top 3 series go. They have a Mexico series, like I said, but they haven't raced any of the top series down there.
Mhm.
So I think, this is just kind of spreading across North America as their first step towards really building that international audience. I mean, you see all sports doing it, right? Baseball's doing it. Certainly the NFL is doing it.
Mhm.
So, you kind of hit your cap on, if you're in the United States and you see NASCAR, you know what it is, you're either a fan or you're not. But some of these folks have never seen NASCAR in person because they haven't been there. So it's their opportunity to just grow the sport and obviously make more money, which is what they're really in it for. But also, just expose different people to the sport.
And I guess it's really cool that you've got Daniel Suarez going back to his native country. He was NASCAR's first foreign-born champion when he won the Xfinity in 2016, has won twice in the Cup Series, once earlier this year. So nice little touch there, as Trackhouse Racing will kind of take center stage to some degree in this event next year.
And building relationships within the Hispanic community is really something that's been very important to Daniel since he came into the sport. Much like, building, in the African-American community is important to Bubba. I mean, when you come into this in the female community to people like Haley Deegan and Isabella Rosario and Rosario, that's her last name, Robello, some of the people that are coming up in the sport female-wise, there aren't a lot of people right now that look like Daniel or Bubba or Isabella. So they all take growing it in their communities very, very personally. Like they want to see more people like them in the garage area. And so this is big for Daniel. He was actually in Mexico City with Ben for the announcement yesterday. And, it's also great because, when you have to do media with the media in Mexico City, you have a driver who speaks Spanish, who can speak to the media, who can speak to the fans, somebody they can instantly connect with. And so all of those things, I think, fell in line perfectly and are probably a big reason why they went to Mexico first. Having a Mexican-born driver gives instant connection to some of the fans down there.
Heather, this is a dumb question, but is there any sort of exemption, or is this an event or a race where we can see somebody that's maybe not fully on the circuit of international acclaim, perhaps jump in for this race? Forgive my ignorance there.
Sure. I mean, absolutely. I mean, there are 36 charters, I believe, and a race can have 40 drivers in it. So there are always 4 open spots in a race. And that's if all the charter teams show up, which they normally do because you have to just keep your charter. So, yeah, I would say that there are probably going to be at least 1 or 2 of the NASCAR Mexico Series drivers that will try to make this race. I think that when you look at organizations that have been real involved in growing the sport internationally, you look at the Trackhouse Project 91 car that they have, that was what Shane Van Gisbergen drove. You would expect that they would probably try to enter somebody maybe from the Mexico Series in that 2311 with their car. The Project 60 car at Roush Fenway is another one where they've done brought in some international drivers. So, yeah, I think there's a good chance that any or all of those teams would try to enter maybe one of the Mexico drivers or maybe a team that we're not even thinking or expecting.
I mean, I know he'll be 49 years old, but any chance my boy Juan Pablo Montoya gets back out there one time? Surely not.
I mean, he's going to run in Watkins Glen for 2311 this year. So I would say there's a pretty good chance that he does, especially if the ride goes well at Watkins Glen here in a couple weeks.
Be fun. I always enjoyed him. I know he gets a bad rap because of the crazy situation that happened in 2012 with the jet dryer,
which was not his fault.
Not his fault at all. That's the frustrating part. But he's part of the meme that lives on the internet forever now because his car smashed into the jet dryer.
Right. But yeah, he's going to drive next week. No, 2 weeks. In 2 weeks at Watkins Glen, whenever that race is coming up soon in the first round here. I think it's 2 weeks. So you'll get a chance to see him then for sure. And yeah, I think there's a chance that someone like Juan Pablo could drive down there for sure.
I'd love that. That'd be fun. I just enjoy, it was so unique to me that he had such a pedigree, and it was kind of, that experiment almost. And I was fascinated, and obviously had hoped it would maybe work out a little more.
Well, and he's one of the few drivers that has been able to be successful in F1, in IndyCar, and in the Cup Series. Switching from those open wheel cars to the stock cars is very difficult, and really accomplished drivers like Dario Franchitti and Harrison. Gosh, I'm confusing my names today. Burton Jensen and Sam Hornish. There's a list as long of guys who have tried to make the jump who haven't been able to do it because it's a different animal, and it just shows how talented Juan Pablo really is.
Heather Williams of WCYB TV out of Johnson City joining us here on Main Street Sports today as we talk a little NASCAR. Heather, obviously, this race at Darlington this weekend will be the final race of the regular season. Anybody, as you look over this field, that you're particularly disappointed isn't going forward past Sunday?
Yeah, it's kind of a long list. I'm disappointed that Kyle Busch isn't there. He is a driver that certainly should be in there. I mean, obviously he has a chance to win at Darlington. He's run really well like the last 3 weeks. So finished second at Daytona. He definitely can win, but if he doesn't make it, it's disappointing. I think obviously Bubba and Ross, if they don't make it, kind of disappointing that they didn't make it. I think that the Front Row Motorsports duo of Michael McDowell and Todd Gilliland both would probably be pretty disappointed. I feel like they probably both felt like they had a chance to make the playoffs, and at least one of them's not going to, probably both of them, because Darlington's not a particularly good track for either one of those drivers. So yeah, the list is long, but I mean, it happens all the time in every sport, right? I mean, I'm sure the Cincinnati Bengals weren't particularly happy last year that they didn't make the playoffs, but that's kind of the way the sport goes. Sports in general goes. It's cruel sometimes.
Absolutely. Heather, we appreciate you taking some time with us, and we will catch up with you next Wednesday.
Yeah, probably not next Wednesday. But...
that's right. You warned me about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe not next Wednesday.
It's NASCAR Playoff Media Day in Charlotte, so I will be tied up at that. And
okay.
So,
all right, we will have to try to do some juggling and see if we can get you on at some point next week, if not Wednesday, prior to Atlanta. So
yeah, we can make something work some other time if you guys can.
Sounds good.
Awesome stuff.
We appreciate you.
All right, see you guys later.
Bye-bye. When we return here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, it is the final segment of the day. It is Wild and Wacky Wednesday. Wade and I will take you through some of the weirdest, wildest, and wackiest news from across the globe. So stay tuned when we come back to the Lee Company studios after this break.
So, you want to be a part of the Busy Bee team, huh? Well, how do you see yourself fitting into the organization? Oh, I get it. You want to be a weather bee.
Robertson County Chancery Court is hosting an in-person court auction Saturday, September 7th at 10 a.m. Buy up to 9.46 acres of beautiful Robertson County land, selling in 2 tracts. Each tract includes water and approved soil areas. Located at 4637 Boyd Holland Road. Join us Saturday, September 7th at 10 a.m. Sale subject to court approval. For more details, call 615-384-5650 today.
He shoots, and he scores!
It's Wild and Wacky Wednesday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. This is the final segment of the day, and it is Wild and Wacky Wednesday. Going to give you some of the weirdest, wildest, and wackiest news from across the globe, but we're going to start in San Diego, specifically at the U.S.-Mexico border in San Diego, where fake watermelons turned out to be packages of methamphetamines.
Uh-oh.
And they didn't fool anybody.
Uh-oh.
The U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency seized more than $5 million worth of meth earlier this month when the cargo aboard a Mexican tractor trailer was unloaded for a detailed inspection. More than 1,200 packages wrapped in paper colored to look like watermelon skins, weighing nearly 4,600 pounds. That's 2 tons and some change. That's a lot.
You know, it's that is a lot, and it's funny that this story is I forget where I saw this story. I saw it a couple days ago, and I was describing it to Mary Austin over the weekend. We rode by a watermelon stand, and I was trying to describe this story to her. I said, I swear I saw this on social media somewhere, and I'm struggling to get the details. I'm struggling to, I was like, but trust me, this happened. And she asked, a few more questions. And I said, the only thing I remember for sure, and Mark, bring that picture back up if you don't mind, the second photo there. The only thing I said for sure, I said that the picture that I saw, it didn't look like a watermelon. I'm not saying that it's meth, but it didn't look like a watermelon to me when I was trying to describe this to her. It looks like maybe a watermelon that's on meth. But it didn't look like a watermelon. So as we pass by this nice, beautiful southern little watermelon stand outside, I was reminded of this story. I'm so glad it's in the news here. And not so sorry to hear that, over $5 million. That's a lot of dough that potentially got busted there.
Yeah. Somebody's not going to be happy that got snatched. The truck driver was turned over to Homeland Security investigations. That poor dude. I mean, he may or may not have known what he was carrying, but it doesn't matter. So
he may want to use a restroom with a python before what's about to happen to him instead.
Yeah. Before he goes back to Mexico, no doubt. A beer truck turned over in Oxford, Mississippi, recently.
I feel like I've heard this story before. You tell me this is new.
It probably has happened before, but it did happen recently. Delivery truck dropped dozens of cases of beer. The Oxford Police Department
oh geez.
The Oxford Police Department posted social media photos such as that one that you can see right there. Asked drivers to avoid the area for a while. Please use another route, and no, you cannot come help clean up. That doesn't sound very nice on the part of the police department. I mean, if I'm just a concerned citizen and I want to come and lend my assistance to getting this street open back up a little quicker, for you to tell me no doesn't seem very nice.
It doesn't seem nice, and I'm not above turning down a little free help. I mean, come on, man. Them things, you don't want to be out there all day picking them up.
No.
The city obviously is what makes the story. And yeah, that's why I kind of joke, because I feel like cases of beer have long been overturned. Maybe not to the level of a delivery truck.
You feel like that's not the first time that has happened in Oxford. Understandably so.
Did you know this about Ole Miss and the medical marijuana lab? Did Did you know about this?
I did not know about this.
This is a story that will blow your mind too. Ole Miss is home. They have a full-blown marijuana lab, science lab, as it were, on campus. And what made me think of it was the sentence in our last one: "No, you cannot come help clean up. No, you cannot just sneak into the lab." But they have a full-blown medicinal marijuana science lab on the campus of Ole Miss that has been around for like 60 years. And it's just crazy because I feel like that should be talked about more.
Maybe that's just one of those things that what happens in Oxford stays in Oxford. I don't know, but no, I was not aware of that. Or maybe just because it's for medicinal purposes only.
Perhaps, and I've never, took it upon myself to really test or, go by and see. But I've heard that, obviously you hear that and you're saying, oh, okay, well, I know where to go if I want some of that action. But supposedly this thing is locked down. I mean, guards out the wazoo, potential, rifles, etc. But yeah, 50 plus years they've been holding down some medicinal marijuana research at Ole Miss, and now they got beer flying in the streets. I don't know. Is this a coincidence? Ole Miss is ranked in the top 10. You tell me.
Oh,
they're just getting ready.
They are ranked in the top 10, and they are probably also, I don't know if they still do the party school rankings or not, but they are probably ranked in that as well.
Lose a lot of games. Don't really lose a lot of tailgates. Though, like
we what is it they say? We ain't never lost a party.
Never. Yeah, that is a fact. It'll be fun to watch this year.
Yeah. Alain Delon, if you're not familiar with the name, it's okay. He is a French film icon who died earlier this week. And at one time, he had said he wanted his beloved sheepdog, Lubo, buried with him. I've had 50 dogs in my life, but I have a particular relationship with this one, he told a Paris magazine. If I die before him, I'll ask the veterinarian for us to leave together. I prefer that to knowing he would let himself die on my tomb amid so much suffering. So after Delon's death, animal rights activists and concerned citizens were quite distraught regarding Lubo's future. Apparently, though, Lubo is still safe and sound, has not been, will not be buried with Mr. Delon, despite his best intentions. Has a home in Ducci and will live there, and an official said. So, fear not. Dubo is alive and well, and our condolences to the family and friends of Mr. Delon. But, that's quite the interesting comment to make, and quite the interesting sentiment. When I die, I want X to go with me. Wait a minute, I ain't ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, this. I don't want to stereotype a whole nation, but this seems like a classic French situation here. This is my dog. I know what he wants the best, and it will be too much for me to, I'm borderline tiptoeing into an accent here. It'll be too much. It'll be too much for him to leave without me. And the dog is over there sitting there saying, "Heck no, bro! Like I'm getting into
good.
I'm getting into all the treats and then some. The second you get out of this world, so
I'm good.
I don't know, man. It's a
little presumptuous.
Imagine the conversations. You get invited to his house, and the dog is sitting there and he's telling you this heartwarming story, and then he's patting the dog, and the dog is looking at you like, "Save me! I didn't blink twice. I did not agree with this situation.
Yeah, get me out of here."
Don't speak for. What did we say the dog's name was?
Lubo.
Yeah, Lubo's like, come on, man. Lubo started Do we know the age? Lubo is like all of a sudden completely rejuvenated in like the day or two before this happened. He's running around at full speed, like, hey, I got plenty of life to live. Don't put me in just yet, partner.
Don't cut me short. I got more bones to bury. Absolutely. No. A missing child report ends happily, if not a little embarrassedly, I guess. In New York City, a boy who had been reported missing was actually on the roof of his New York City apartment building when a TV news helicopter crew spotted him. 9-year-old left his Brooklyn apartment around 7 a.m., did not show up for school. Parents called police. Description of him was put out, including the orange tie he was wearing. The local CBS affiliate sent a helicopter to the scene, and a reporter spotted the youngster on the rooftop of his family's apartment building. As my pilot and I were circling around the building, we came across a person sitting in a chair over here on the rooftop. We zoomed in with the camera. It appeared to be the child that fit the description of the missing child. Employees called NYPD. Helicopter crew hovered until they got there. He just packs up his computer and his book bag and goes off with the police officers. They looked back at our helicopter, gave us a big thumbs up, and took the child down to his parents, where they were so happy to see him.
Man, I'm conflicted on this, right? And this is giving Ferris Bueller vibes, to say the least. But man, yeah, you're glad, obviously, the 9-year-old is safe and sound, but he's sitting there, he's shaking his fist. He's got the Arthur meme going. He's like curses because had the perfect day potentially foiled.
Right.
Thanks to these TV cameras.
I'm just hanging out up here on the roof and chilling, and this dang helicopter blows it for me. So, yeah, that's a tough way to end your off day if you're a 9-year-old. After months on the run, a murder suspect falls through the ceiling and into custody. U.S. Marshals say agents arrested 20-year-old Dario Wilkerson on Monday, months after a warrant for his arrest on charges of first-degree murder and reckless endangerment was issued in connection with a fatal shooting in Memphis. Wilkerson attempted to hide in the attic as the marshal searched the residence. However, he fell through the ceiling. Was not injured in the fall, taken into custody without further incident. April shooting left a man dead and a woman injured. Wilkerson, one of 3 arrested in connection with the incident.
Oof, yeah, that obviously the buildup is extremely sad and tragic. But I mean,
the way he was apprehended is
the apprehension is comedic, to say the least, because imagine you're sitting there, you're quiet as can be, you're not making a noise, you can hear everybody down below.
It's like you feel like you are just this close to getting away with this. I mean, if I can just hang out just a little bit longer, they're going to realize I'm not here and they're going to leave and I'm going to be in the clear. And then all of a sudden you feel something starting to give way. And it's like, oh, poop.
I don't even know if Mr. Delon, the late French film star, could have acted it any better, because that's the scene from a movie right there. You're so close, and then poof, you fall
and
right
yet
through.
So far, absolutely. That's going to do it for Wild and Wacky Wednesday, the segment and the show here on Main Street Sports Today. Be sure and check out here, get you some beverages, get you a quick snack. Come on back to whatever platform you watch us on to see the Southern Middle Tennessee High School football show that starts at 5 o'clock. We will see y'all tomorrow at 2 right here.